everyone. Today I'm reviewing Throne of Light by Guy Haley. So we've reached book 4 in the Dawn of Fire series, continuing the journey of the Indomitus Crusade. Cor Pharaon, Dark Cardinal of the Wordbearers, is targeting the Imperium's black ships, which feed the Emperor with Psyker fuel. Can Inquisitor Rostov get to the hand of Abaddon, also known as Tenebrous, to figure out what's going on? Can Fabian Gulfrain survive the attack of a Wordbearer's fleet and save the vital information stored on the world of Srinagar? And also, can he find out why he's been sent to this front line in particular? As the main plot unravels, it's discovered by the forces of chaos that there is some vision of a star child. Who's this child and why does it matter? Whatever it means, it seems clear that it's got some kind of importance. The Hand of Abaddon and the Wordbearers, led by Cor Pharaon, know that they must find out what it means and get to it before the Imperium. So we've got a fairly interesting and reasonable plot on our hands. The first half of Throne of Light is a better part of the book. We encounter characters you know and moderately enjoy, perhaps. Historitor Fabian is becoming a fairly interesting character, but he is quite snarky, yet committed, self-aware, and brave. So, without spoiling anything, he's quite dynamic, he's quite interesting, his role in this book, but I don't know if everyone would necessarily love him. I don't think I do that much, but he's a good character. Strangely, though, if we consider the whole of this book, not much really happens of importance. It's as if it does a good job of building up tension in the first portion of the book, but then, by the end, when it reaches the kind of climactic set piece, it all seems to dampen all of that tension and good work it's done through the earlier parts. I think it's partly to do with the fact that once you're finished reading, you kind of ask, well, why does any of this really matter what happened in this book? Because nothing really did actually happen or develop the plot that much. So, obviously without much resolution or consequences, that's quite a big issue, I think, with the book. And bear in mind, there is an appendix in this one called Notes on the Crusade, which should explain why it fits into the wider picture. But I think if you're saying that you need that to kind of clarify things, then you've done a bad job of writing the sections where you illustrate why it matters. It should be in the story anyway, surely. Sure, you might want to build upon what you've already said in the book, in the actual prose, but this kind of just talks about some other stuff that's going on, really, which I just don't think is an effective way to do it, personally. I think it fails in kind of elucidating that and making it feel like, oh, this actually really matters. There's a fairly big spoiler that I am going to mention, so just skip about 20 seconds, give or take, if you want to miss it. But really, both sides are chasing this vision. They kind of still continuing to chase it by the end, this golden child. And there are hints, I think someone says, I can't remember which character, maybe Tenebrous, but they sort of talk about, oh, it might be the Emperor returning. So that's obviously quite significant if it does turn out to be true, but in this particular book, nothing really gets developed any further from when they're already just looking for the source of these visions. So, having said that though, some of those early parts of the book are good, as I mentioned earlier, with characters playing off against one another effectively. Primaris Sergeant Lucerne's relationship with Fabian is really well done, and I look forward to it in future books. I think we also get a good look at the challenges that Inquisitor Rostov faces, the kind of mental weight he carries, inflicting punishments all the time, torturing people and sort of doing psychic inquiry. It wears on him and drains him, but it's kind of his faith sort of sustains him, is the kind of imagery that we got. And, he's a typically stern and really unflinching character. He is an Inquisitor. So it provides this kind of side to him that you don't necessarily see, which was really cool, I thought. I thought that was probably one of the best bits of the book. The Black Templars are portrayed as zealous as they're often stated to be, often to the point of kind of conflict with forces they're allegedly allied with. And I think this is really well done. I really liked how it unravelled, and it kind of really portrayed the zeal of the Templars well. And I think sometimes they don't always do a good job of that. So that was very well done. The Chaos Forces also is kind of how you might expect. The Wordbearers are typically far closer to comic book villain than perhaps having tons of depth. you know, you might compare them to other antagonists and kind of say, well, word bearers are kind of just pure evil, really. They sort of don't show any remorse or variation in their beliefs. They sort of know that they believe in the truth of chaos, and that's it. And I don't necessarily see that as a problem. I mean, I actually quite like the word bearers. I think they're kind of just, you just got to kind of look at them slightly differently, arguably. They're emblematic of the wholehearted embracing of chaos. That's kind of the best way to think of it, I think. The characters aren't always done well, though, or kind of factions. The Xenos Chiochi, one of the companions accompanying Inquisitor Rostov, is just obnoxious to the point of it feeling forced and getting tedious. Lekrant is bland to the point of being faceless, and so there are characters that are kind of misses in this book. So the main strong point of this book is really the build-up of tension, and it does a good job across several threads that it follows through the book of kind of maintaining that tension throughout. Rostov's kind of trying to figure out what's going on, like who is he actually chasing? Fabian kind of finding himself and his Logos team sent to this world and this kind of word bearer's attack, and they kind of get mixed up in it. And, you know, there's kind of set up for Fabian sort of trying to find out what Gilliman's up to. Can he really trust Gilliman entirely? That's kind of been a common theme throughout the series, that, you know, how trustworthy is Gilliman? There's a lot of kind of distrust within Imperial forces, especially the Custodes, obviously. There's some good smaller set pieces, such as the word-bearer Zokol and his Chimera hounds, or when the word-bearers attack a black ship and we sort of see the crew's perspective. So there's lots of little set pieces and little action parts. It's just that, strangely, the kind of main set piece is sort of a little anticlimactic. It wasn't the worst, but you sort of just have this pervading sense that nothing really matters in this book. And I think that's probably its sort of huge flaw. So in terms of final score, for a lot of the reading of Throne of Light, it is an interesting and exciting book with good characters, some unique enough plot lines and developments, and really good tension. But it gets anticlimactic. It does suffer the problem of the Dawn of Fire series, where, despite the series' best efforts, it really does feel like it lacks gravitas. You come away wondering why there was no real conclusion, or why some aspects didn't really seem to develop enough, I think. And so I can't help but deduct a point or two for that. But it's a kind of shame, because for most of the book, it probably was the most engaging book in the series so far, at least for me. But it leaves you with a bitter aftertaste, and it detracts from great scenes and encounters between certain characters, certain factions, the Black Templars, Fabian's heroics, and also snarkiness, and how they play off against one another. It's worth reading if you're sort of going to go for all of them for completion, but it's also worth noting that none of the events really have huge impact, and so if you skipped it, honestly, you probably wouldn't really miss much. So I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. Probably a missed opportunity, really, but it's still fairly strong. You can definitely read it. It's definitely more good than bad, I would say. So like and subscribe for all the rest of the Dawn of Fire series and books from 40k Universe and other genres, and thanks for watching.